The Billionaire's Secret Island Part 1. Chapter 1, Shipwrecked Stranger. The water glistened like liquid sapphire beneath the melting sun, calm and glassy and silent, the kind of silence that felt rehearsed, as if the island was holding its breath. Isla Cruz stood barefoot at the edge of the weather-worn dock, adjusting the strap on her dive tank. Her wetsuit clung to her like a second skin, zipped halfway down to reveal a flash of bronze-toned collarbone, damp from the salt air. A pair of sun-faded goggles rested against her forehead, framing her long dark lashes and eyes that scanned the horizon, restless, hungry. The island behind her, Santa Isla de Luz, a private, near-forgotten sliver of paradise in the Indian Ocean, wasn't on most maps. That was the point. She'd come here to disappear, to rebuild her shattered reputation after a scandal involving stolen research, a billionaire sponsor, and a very public breakup that had nothing to do with marine biology. She inhaled. Held it. Jumped. The water closed around her like silk. Below the surface, Isla became something else entirely. Her strokes were effortless, her lungs strong. The reef rose up before her, a labyrinth of lavender corals, swaying anemones, flickers of silver fish darting through like sequins in motion. She adjusted her underwater camera and hovered silently over a cluster of brain coral. Snap! Snap! The moment was perfect, until it wasn't. A sudden current brushed her legs. She stilled. The water shifted. Heavy. Off-tempo. Wrong. She turned. Through the blurring green light, something drifted toward her, a shadow. Long. Human-shaped. Limbs floating unnaturally. Caught in a trailing mess of seaweed. She kicked forward, adrenaline surging. A man. Face down. Shirt half torn. Salt cuts on his arms. She caught his body just before it sank into the darker waters and struggled to angle them both upward. The current fought her, as if trying to pull him back. His weight dragged her down, but she didn't let go. The surface shattered around them as she broke through, gasping. She dragged him across the beach, her arms burning, the soles of her feet slicing against shells. The sky above had turned a bruised shade of violet, the sun was a thin red coin disappearing fast behind clouds that rolled in like angry smoke. Distant thunder growled like a warning. He didn't move. She dropped to her knees beside him, chest heaving. Hey, hey. She pushed wet hair from his face. Sand clung to his lashes. He was absurdly beautiful, even in this state, sharp cheekbones, dark stubble, full lips slightly parted. A scar near his temple. Salt in his lashes. Can you hear me? No response. She checked his pulse, there, faint but steady. His chest rose in slow, shallow breaths. The man groaned softly, lips twitching. His eyes fluttered open for half a second, enough to reveal a shocking color, stork cloud gray, rimmed in gold. Then they closed again. That's when she saw it. His wrist. A gold bracelet, slick with seawater, catching a crack of lightning like a spark. Thick, masculine, and engraved. Not with a name. With a symbol. A crest, ornate, curling vines around a serpent clutching a rose. It wasn't just jewelry. It looked old. Important. And expensive. She sat back, breath catching. Who the hell washes up on a forgotten island in the middle of the ocean wearing a custom gold bracelet and no ID? A billionaire? A fugitive? A victim? Or something worse? Another rumble of thunder snapped her out of it. Okay, she muttered. You're alive. But if you die on my beach, I swear to God you'll ruin my week. She grabbed his arms and dragged him again, struggling against the sand and rising wind. The storm had officially arrived. By the time she kicked open the bamboo door to her hut, rain lashed sideways like sharp fingers and the sea hissed with fury. Inside, her small off-grid bungalow glowed dimly from a solar lantern. She dropped him on the woven mat floor with a grunt, water dripping from both their bodies. Her breath came in quick, shaking bursts. Her wetsuit clung to her like glue. She pulled it halfway off, grabbed a towel, and knelt beside him. His lips were blue at the edges. Don't die. That would really suck right now. He didn't answer. Of course. She wrapped him in the towel, paused, and reached for the bracelet. Her fingers hovered above it, just touching the gold. It felt oddly warm. Then, his hand snapped up, clutching her wrist. His eyes flew open, wild and alert. Don't touch that. His voice was hoarse. Deep. Dangerous. And then he passed out again. Chapter 2, The Man with No Name. The storm had thinned to a persistent whisper, the kind that lingered long after the thunder stopped shouting. Rain pattered against the tin roof like restless fingers drumming. Inside the dimly lit hut, the air was heavy with salt, wet linen, and something darker, the hum of a stranger's presence. Isla sat in the corner on a low bamboo chair, her knees pulled to her chest, a faded throw draped around her shoulders. Her long hair was still damp, sticking to her collarbone. She hadn't slept. Not really. Her eyes had remained on the man lying unconscious on the floor. One hand curled near his head. The other, still wrapped in that towel, clutched close to his body like a secret. The bracelet was now hidden beneath the folds. She hadn't dared remove it again. She told herself it was none of her business. She told herself a lot of things. But the truth was, the bracelet terrified her. People didn't just wash up with custom gold jewelry, half dead and silent, only to suddenly grab her wrist the second she touched it. She'd pulled back in shock, but he had gone limp immediately after, like a switch had flipped. And now he stirred again. A small groan broke the silence. The man shifted, his face tightening. Then, his eyes blinked open. Isla sat straighter. His gaze was unfocused, darting between the cracked ceiling, the bamboo mat, the flickering lantern light. He tried to push himself up and winced. Easy, Isla said, standing. You're safe. He looked at her. Not just looked. He studied her. Her damp hair. The curve of her arms. The outline of her silhouette in the lantern glow. Not in a sleazy way. Not even in a romantic way. In a way that felt trained. Like he was calculating. Where? His voice came low and broken. Where am I? My hut, she said cautiously. On Santa Isla del Luz. A private island. You were caught in the reef. He frowned, rubbed his forehead with the back of his hand. I don't remember, he muttered. Don't remember what? He looked at her again. Anything. She hesitated. You don't remember, what? Your name. Where you came from. How you got into the ocean. He shook his head slowly, as if the motion itself hurt. No. His tone was calm. Too calm. Isla crossed her arms. You're telling me you have no idea who you are? I woke up on the beach with a splitting headache and a stranger staring at me. Forgive me if I'm a little disoriented. She narrowed her eyes. His voice was still hoarse, but smoother now. Less raw. The edge was returning. I found you in the reef, she said. You were nearly drowned. Half your shirt was ripped off. And you were wearing that. She pointed to his covered wrist. He pulled the towel tighter around it. Bracelet, he said, dry. Very observant. You grabbed me when I touched it. He met her eyes for a long beat. I was unconscious. No, you weren't. Not in that moment. Fine, he said. Then maybe I was half conscious. Maybe it was instinct. It's not a normal reaction, she replied, voice quiet. Another pause. The lantern flickered. He sat up slowly, wincing. The muscles in his arms and chest rippled beneath the towel and wet clothes. Isla's eyes darted briefly, to his abdomen, where a long, thin scar stretched from beneath his ribs to his side. It looked fresh. Surgical. He noticed her staring and gave a small smirk. I may not know my name, he said, but I know when someone's checking me out. Isla rolled her eyes. You're lucky I didn't leave you out there for the sharks. His smirk vanished. Were there sharks? Possibly. You were bleeding. He reached for his side, touched the scar. That explains the pain. She folded her arms. I have antibiotics. And a radio that doesn't work. You're stuck here with me until supply day, which is 4 days away. 4 days, he repeated. His eyes scanned the room. No phone. No signals. Just bamboo walls, solar lights, canvas bags, and her. Are you a doctor? He asked. No. Marine biologist. Close enough. I'm not the one who needs help remembering my name. He turned, eyes sharp now. And I'm not the one breaking into someone's personal jewelry like I'm opening a safe. She flinched. You're hiding something, she said. He didn't answer. Silence stretched. Finally, he extended a hand. Fine, he said. Let's try a new start. Since I'm apparently a nameless sea corpse you revived. You're Isla. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Well then. His smile was slow. Lazy. Dangerous. Nice to meet you, Isla. She didn't take his hand. I'll call you John Doe. Charming, he said. But I prefer something a bit sexier. How about liar? She shot back. His grin widened. Now we're getting somewhere. Later, she handed him a dry shirt from her spare supplies. He disappeared behind a privacy curtain to change. When he re-emerged, his silhouette filled the doorway, drenched in moonlight, barefoot, half-buttoned shirt hanging off him like a model in a resort ad. He glanced at her pot of instant rice simmering on the burner. Is that dinner? He asked. You have a concussion. I also haven't eaten since. I don't know when. Unless amnesia makes you full. She hesitated, then passed him a wooden bowl. They sat side by side on the floor, bowls in hand, facing the open doorway. Outside, the moon slipped through the palm trees, casting silver shadows across the sand. He took a bite, then looked at her. So, Isla, tell me something about yourself. Anything. Why? She said. Because I have no memory. And you seem interesting. I'm not. You're beautiful, smart, and you dragged a stranger out of the ocean in the middle of a lightning storm. That's at least a little interesting. She gave him a look. Flirting already. He raised a brow. What else am I supposed to do? Count the palm trees. She fought the smile threatening her lips. He was charming. Too charming. For a man with no memory, he sure knew how to use his words like silk. Do you always flirt your way out of traumatic head injuries? She asked. Maybe, he said. If I ever remember who I am, I'll let you know. But even as he laughed, even as he sipped water from her tin cup and acted like the perfect stranded playboy, Isla noticed something. Whenever she looked away, his hand went to the bracelet. Every single time. He wasn't trying to remember anything. He was trying to hide it. Chapter 3, The Bracelet. Morning unfolded like a silk scarf falling across the sea, slow, shimmering, and deceptive. The storm was gone. Not a cloud in sight. The sand was bleached white again, the palm leaves swaying gently, as if the night before had never happened. But inside Isla's bungalow, the air remained charged with something unsettled. She stirred early, before the sun had fully risen, her limbs tangled in her thin blanket, her back stiff from sleeping on the floor mat. The guest room had no door, just a canvas curtain, swaying faintly in the breeze that came through the slatted window. Behind it, the man. Still asleep. Still nameless. Still dangerous, even in unconscious stillness. She rose quietly, barefoot, and moved to the small wooden shelf above her kitchenette. She poured water from the solar kettle into a chipped mug, dropped in a cinnamon bark and orange peel tea sachet, and let the steam curl up to her nose. She stared out at the sea. Blue. Endless. Quiet. Then, a faint sound behind her, a shift of weight. The curtain drew slightly inward. He was awake. Isla turned as he stepped into the light. He wore the same shirt from the night before, unbuttoned now to reveal toned skin and a lean, sculpted torso, the kind that made your brain short-circuit if you looked too long. His hair was still damp at the edges, sticking up haphazardly. He stretched like a jungle cat, slow, deliberate, watching her from under his lashes. Morning, he said, voice still husky with sleep. She handed him a mug without answering. He accepted it with one of those smiles that had probably gotten him out of parking tickets, into VIP lounges, and into a whole lot of beds. What's in it? He asked. Not poison, she said. He chuckled. Always reassuring. They stood in silence, sipping tea. The breeze rustled through the open windows, warm and clean. He glanced at her. You didn't sleep much. Neither did you. I slept fine, he said, then added, eventually. She didn't respond. Instead, her eyes dropped, just briefly, to his wrist. The bracelet glinted gold in the sunlight. He saw her looking. He moved his arm slightly. Subtle. Natural. But deliberate. A practiced habit. You keep hiding it, she said softly. He tilted his head. Hiding what? She gestured with her chin. That bracelet. You act like you don't want anyone to see it. Anyone, he echoed. You're the only person here. Exactly. He sipped his tea, calm again. Maybe I'm shy. She stepped closer. Is it expensive? She asked. I think so. Looks custom. Probably. Then why don't you want me to see it? He met her gaze, and this time, he didn't smile. Because I don't know what it means, he said. The words were smooth, but too smooth. Like a line. Like something already rehearsed. Isla tilted her head, studying him. It's engraved. He hesitated. Is it? You haven't looked. I might have seen it. Glimpsed it. What did it say? He took another sip. Something in Latin, I think. Doesn't ring a bell. Interesting. She stepped closer still. They were face to face now. Let me see it, she said. He hesitated. Why? Because you're wearing something you claim not to understand. And I saw your face last night when I touched it. You weren't unconscious. He laughed once, breathy. You're intense. She didn't blink. You're lying. His eyes searched hers. Then, with a sigh, he slowly extended his arm, pulling back the sleeve. The bracelet gleamed. It was thick and heavy, not flashy, but clearly old money. Underneath the curve of gold, a finely etched crest was visible, a serpent curled around a rose, encircled by intricate vines. Above it, a Latin phrase. Sub rosa, vincimus. Isla stared at it. I don't know Latin, she said. It means, he paused. Under the rose, we conquer. Her brow furrowed. How do you know that? He blinked. A beat. Then, it came to me. Just now. She nodded slowly, but inside, something twisted. Because nothing about this man said accidental or lost. The way he moved. The way he spoke. The way he calculated every word, every glance. This wasn't a shipwrecked tourist. This was something else. Someone else. Later, she watched him from the tree line as he walked the beach alone, barefoot, shirtless, the bracelet gleaming on his wrist. He moved like someone who knew how to command a room, even if that room was empty and made of sand. She held up her field tablet, pulled up her offline database. Typed, Sub rosa vincimus. Nothing. No public record. No hits. She zoomed in on the symbol she'd sketched, serpent, rose, vines. Then her fingers froze. A low-resolution image popped up in her downloaded files, an old article about European family crests. There it was. Small, faded, and dangerous looking. The De Rossi family. Italian. Reclusive. Untraceable wealth. And one whispered word, in the footnotes of the file. Mafia. Back on the beach, the man lifted his hand to block the sun. Then, as if sensing her gaze, he turned and looked straight at her. Smile slow. Eyes unreadable. And for the first time, Isla felt something cold slide down her spine. She had dragged the wrong man out of the water. Chapter 4, Billionaire in Hiding. It was nearly noon when Isla returned from checking her tide gauges along the East Reef. She carried a weather-beaten clipboard in one hand and a netted bag of broken coral samples in the other. The air smelled of salt and sun-warmed mango trees. Everything on the island looked calm, ordinary, even boring. But her pulse had been thrumming all morning. Something in her had shifted. Ever since she'd seen that crest, ever since she'd read the word mafia, nothing felt safe. And the man currently flipping through her backup field journal at her kitchen table was the reason why. He looked up as she entered, cool as ever, shirt half unbuttoned, sunglasses she didn't know she owned perched low on his nose. Borrowed these, he said, tapping the frames. Hope you don't mind. You left them in the dive locker. You're raiding my stuff now. He grinned. Only the stylish bits. She dropped the clipboard a little harder than necessary. I told you not to touch my research. He placed the journal down, hands raised in a lazy, mock surrender. Noted. Touchy scientist is touchy. But Isla wasn't listening. Her eyes had darted toward the corner of the room where her portable satellite Wi-Fi box sat, blinking faintly. It was on. She hadn't turned it on. She stepped toward it slowly. "You touch that too?" she asked, voice flat. He followed her gaze, then leaned back in the chair with an exaggerated sigh. "Relax. It was just sitting there. I needed to check if anyone's looking for me. There's no signal out here. Not unless you know how to unlock the international frequency bands." She turned to him, blinking. "What?" He smiled at her. "Let's just say I remembered something useful." Isla walked over and picked up the box. The screen was glowing faint blue, connected, not to her usual data storage account, but to a custom encrypted network. "What did you do?" she said quietly. "Don't worry, I didn't steal your emails," he replied, rising and stretching. "Though from what I can tell, your inbox is painfully boring." "You hacked it." "I accessed it," he corrected. "Temporarily." She opened her mouth to say something, maybe to scream, but her eyes caught something strange. On the screen, a window flickered open. Just for a second. Lines of text. Not English. Not Spanish. Code. Before she could stop him, he leaned over and shut it with a few taps, the way someone would lazily swipe a fly off a table. "There," he said. "All done." Isla stared at him. "You're not just some trust fund idiot with a boat, are you?" He smiled. Not the flirtatious, lazy one. A real smile. Thin. "Right. No. That's all," he said. Then he walked to the door, stretched again, and stepped out into the sunlight like it belonged to him. What Isla didn't see, what she would not see for another 5 episodes, was this. Miles away, across oceans and borders, in a windowless boardroom draped in black velvet, a phone lit up on a mahogany table. The screen pulsed once, quietly. A gloved hand reached for it. A man with salt gray hair leaned over and read the message. "Located." His jaw tightened. He turned to another man seated in shadow and said, in Italian, "He's alive." He sent the mark. "From where?" "Coordinates. Indian Ocean." "And the girl?" "Unknown. But he's using her signal." "Send the yacht." Back on the island, Isla sat alone, trying to calm the gnawing tension in her gut. He was lying. About the bracelet. About the memory loss. About everything. But the worst part. Every time he walked into a room, part of her didn't care. Inside the shaded beach cabana, Nico De Rossi, yes, that was his name, removed the sunglasses and stared at his reflection in the cracked, sea-splashed mirror above her sink. The scar near his temple had started to fade. So had the pain. But not the memories. Not the weight. He touched the bracelet, slowly. "Under the rose, we conquer." He said the words aloud. And smiled. Chapter 5, The First Kiss. The sky began to bruise just after sunset. Clouds rolled back in, not loud like the storm before, but heavy, sulking, the kind that made the sea go still as glass, as if waiting for something. Isla sat outside on the porch of her hut, a thin cotton blanket wrapped around her shoulders. A soft wind tugged at the corners. In her lap, an open field journal remained untouched. The pen in her hand hadn't moved in 20 minutes. She kept glancing toward the edge of the beach. Toward the cabana. He hadn't come back. Not since he'd hacked her Wi-Fi like it was a casual afternoon chore. Her stomach twisted. Not with fear, but with something worse. Curiosity. Attraction. Annoyance. All wrapped together in a knot that refused to unravel. She should have been angry. But the problem was, Nico, if that was even his real name, was infuriatingly hard to stay mad at. He moved like a predator who didn't need to pounce. He let people come to him. And the worst part? They always did. She closed the journal and stood. The air smelled like coming rain. The cabana was dimly lit when she stepped in, a single solar lantern casting soft yellow light across the space. The fabric roof rippled above, casting shadows that danced over the furniture, a low bamboo dabbed, a table with sand still clinging to the legs, her emergency lantern now doubling as a makeshift fireplace. And there he was. Lying shirtless on the dabbed, one arm tucked behind his head, eyes half-lidded and unreadable. She froze. He didn't. You came, he said, voice low, almost lazy. I wanted to talk. His gaze flicked toward her, then away. Sure. Let's talk. She took a cautious step inside. He hadn't put his shirt back on since this morning. The firelight kissed every shadow on his chest, his shoulders, the light curve of his abs. His gold bracelet caught the light like it knew it was being watched. You disappeared all day, she said. I needed to think. About what? About how I got here. What happens next? A pause. About you. That last part wasn't delivered with a smirk. It was quiet. Almost real. She folded her arms. You're full of lines. I've said fewer than 10 things to you today. And they were all lines. He smiled, faint, tired. You don't trust me, he said. No. Good. He sat up then, slow, graceful. His hair was tousled, darker in the firelight. His expression had changed. It was softer, more serious. Can I tell you something? He asked. She hesitated. If it's another lie. It's not. Beat. I remember how I got the scar. He touched the edge of the mark near his temple. Hit with a bottle. A man twice my size. We were in a club. Music was playing. I said the wrong name to the wrong girl. Were you dating her? No. She was engaged to someone important. Ah. So you seduced the wrong mafia princess. He looked at her sharply. She waited. He didn't deny it. That bracelet, she continued. I saw the crest. I know what it means. The De Rossi family. He stood. Just like that. Not abrupt. Not violent. Just tense. She stepped back, instinctively. I don't know what you think you know, he said softly. There was heat under the words. And not just from the fire. I know that no one ends up here by accident, she said. And certainly not someone with that bracelet, that encryption, that smirk. You really hate the smirk, he murmured, stepping toward her. I hate the lies, she snapped. And I hate that you're still hiding something. Another step. Close now. And I hate, she continued, voice rising, that you act like none of this matters when you've crashed into my life and flipped it upside down. Do you? He whispered. What? Do you hate it? He was right in front of her now. She felt the heat of his skin. The smell of ocean and citrus and something darker, more expensive, like leather warmed by sun. You act like I'm just some con artist who washed up on your shore, he said. But maybe, Isla, you're not angry because you don't trust me. Her breath caught. Maybe you're angry because you do. She didn't respond. Because she didn't have to. The tension snapped, not with a shout, but with a kiss. It wasn't slow. It wasn't soft. It was heat and desperation, and finally, his mouth met hers like it had been waiting, like all the glances, the near touches, the maddening banter had been holding back something volcanic. Her hands flew to his shoulders. His gripped her waist. Their bodies collided like waves crashing against stone. Isla gasped into him, and he deepened the kiss, pulling her closer, until there was no space left to doubt or think. Just breath. And heat. And need. His lips trailed down her jaw. Her fingers tangled in his hair. He pressed her back against the cabana wall, the fabric rustling behind her as rain began to hit the roof like drums. She could barely hear it. Only his voice mattered. "You're dangerous," he murmured. "You're the one with the bracelet," she whispered back. They both laughed, breathless, chaotic, and then kissed again. They didn't sleep together. Not yet. But they stayed there, tangled in blankets and soft whispers, firelight painting their skin gold, rain tapping the roof above like a slow, steady heartbeat. And somewhere in that space between midnight and morning, Isla forgot who he might be. She let herself pretend that he was just a man. That she was just a woman. That nothing outside the island existed. But in the morning, he was gone. That's the end of this part, but trust me, the next one is even more thrilling. We drop fresh episodes every day, so don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Thanks for listening to Billionaire Romance Stories, where love meets luxury in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. We love hearing your favorite twists and favorite theories. And don't forget to ring that bell, because in this world of yachts, secrets, and luxurious romance, the next story is always one click away.